Alright, so this is going to be a quick explanation on how to script a super bounce for your map. Or I guess at least how I did it. I haven't seen anything else online. This looks like a lot, but it's really just a lot of the same things happening all at once. Um, so the main thing that's going on here is, I guess if you're familiar with game dev, or you watch like She Says, Not About Secrets or something, you know what game dev cubes are. So what we can do is pretty much we're just using these dev cubes as triggers. So if we go to primitives, right? Yeah, blocks, primitive block. You want to set it to, if you set it to dynamic, it'll get real small. It'll help you hide it in things. But we want to, essentially we're just using them as triggers, so to make them as a trigger volume, I'm going to change the boundary, whatever you want. You're not going to see it, so you want to hit show, and then adjust these values, and you'll start to see your trigger volume, or your area boundary for this object specifically, right? So what I have going on here is I have one here, which essentially starts the whole thing. And then I have a series of them up here in the ceiling. I'll explain why I have those later, but having them not touch the ground is really nice because it ensures they have to do the full jump to make it to the launch point. And so essentially what these are, I have these all set to whenever the game starts, it deletes them, so they're not there, right? And then once you meet the certain parameters on this one, it will spawn the first one. And if you pass through the first one, it'll spawn the second one, third one, and then the launch pad, right? So on and so forth. But you don't want people to overlap, right? So you want to set up a delay. So let's run things. Start this, I guess. Let's see. Okay, so the first thing right here, on the start bounce point, that's what I labeled it as. You have to select the object and then press N, and then you'll be able to add an object reference. And that way it knows what you're talking about here. And so if you go to variables, where? Oh, yeah, variables, and you go to area monitor right here. You'll pull this up, and then you want to get an event. Events, obviously. So we want on object entered area, right? Whenever an object enters the area of our start bounce, of this trigger, right? We want it to run something. We're going to run this. It's going to run into this, but only if we get is crouching. Now this is like a shortcut, because you could do like get is player, and then this bullshit, but it actually, I don't even know if it'll connect. I think it does. But you want both. And this way, nobody just walking by can trigger it. When get is player, if it's true, it's gonna run this. So it's gonna wait. So how long do you want the person to be crouched for in said spot? How long do you want them to be in a spot, or whatever? And then it's gonna spawn the next zone, right? The next trigger. I have it as zone 1, and it's gonna spawn that. And then the rest of this is all just to make sure that nobody else can do it at the same time. So if you notice, this is a pretty small window to do the jump. And the other objects, we come into here, the other zones, I mean, will only spawn once you've passed through the previous zone. So we have zone 1 here, on area monitor, on enter object. The object, none of this will run if it's not a player, so we don't have to worry about recalling the player. So on object entered area, right, we spawn the next area. Right here, zone 2. So on and so forth, right? Zone 2, zone 3, however many zones you need to get the super bounce to work properly without somebody just jumping in at the end and launching themselves, right? You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of an illusion because we can't break the code. We can't, like in Halo 2, you were just offsetting your hitbox, and then the game would kind of freak out and launch you. You know what I mean? Can't really do that, so you gotta kind of fake it. You could also add on object exit area to each one to despawn the previous one, if you want to do it that way. The final object, the launch zone. This is where you want shit to launch, right? So want to monitor that area, and you're gonna want to scale it properly, right? You don't want to be like too high. Like, what if you want them to be crouching when, like, for it to trigger, you lower it or whatever. You know what I'm saying? That kind of stuff. You want to call the player again, because we need this player object. This is important, as you can tell here. So if it's a player, it'll run this. If it's not, nothing will happen. A fucking weapon can't get sent to the moon or something, you know what I mean? So we want to do a translation on the object. Is the best way that I found. I tried doing player traits, which was like the first thing that would come to your mind, right? You're like, okay, let me set his player trait to, you know, like 0.1 gravity and crazy speed for 1 or 2 seconds or something, and like spawn a player blocker in front of him so it, like, you know, he forces himself up. Nah, it's like that would require an extra input. They would have to jump, so you're gonna want to like force it. So it's kind of an illusion. The best way to do it is get a, like, copy one of these cubes, turn the boundary off, and put it to your end point where you want to end, kind of near it. Like, this isn't exactly where it ends, but like wherever you kind of ish want to end up, and then you can see your coordinates down here at the bottom when you select the item, and then just kind of copy those into this vector 3 right here. So translate object to point. We're going to translate the player. The object that entered the area is the player. Translating the player, because players are also objects, to this position. And here is where a lot of like your testing will come in, right? Because you want it to be smooth and to be the right amount of time, right? You know what I mean? I found the best one to mimic as Superbounce translation is ease out circular. So that means when it starts, it's gonna launch, but when it gets more towards the end, it's gonna like kind of slowly get to the end point. And I think the circular means that it can end in a circle around the point and not at the point exactly. I'm not too sure. So it's not as consistent, right? Like the actual Superbounce was, you know? Sometimes you can kind of fuck it up. I did this as well. I don't know if it's actually doing anything, but I'm too afraid to get rid of it. Set angular velocity means like the rotation of your velocity. So like coordinate wise, if you set it to 0090, that would be straight up. So I just plugged that bitch in there, you know, and said fuck it, send them straight up. I don't know if this is actually doing anything. Maybe you can let me know. The other things in here. So, the traits. I think I don't even use these. Yeah. I can just delete these. Yeah. These are left over from testing. The other thing I have in here is... Ah, right. This is my end zone thing. So, This is really just for fun at the end, because technically you're not allowed to be up there, and I have a soft kill barrier. But I have a little cube set to where... Where the fuck's my cube? To where once you hit this trigger from a super bounce, because the launch point will spawn this cube, that once you hit this cube trigger, it will despawn the kill volume for 10 seconds. Just so you could have a little fun with the sniper or whatever, because you did the fucking super bounce and it's kind of hard to hit. I don't know. A good idea with that would be to maybe have another cube extend to just above where you get launched, right? And so you can have that one set to delete object, so kind of like this, where you have it set to delete the object, like your launch zone, right? So if somebody's literally on your ass, they wouldn't be able to launch up with you. I mean, that'd be really funny. Maybe keep that in, because that would be really funny. But I don't know. Anything I missed? This took me way too fucking long to figure out, dude. This is my first big script project, so I probably did it a super jank way. I was like finding new nodes as I was going. So yeah, good luck. Let me know. It's fucking hard. Jesus.